I remember the sound before the words came, the rustle of papers, the soft click of the attorney's pen, the quiet sigh he didn't mean for anyone to hear. Then her voice, smooth, practiced, dripping with entitlement. "We've already divided everything," my aunt declared, her tone leaving no room for argument. "You weren't included for a reason." The room went silent. The attorney frowned, adjusted his glasses, and looked directly at me. "But her name," he said carefully, "is the only one in the will." The silence that followed was heavy, sharp, the kind that cuts through fabric and bone alike. They all stared at me then. The cousins, the aunts, the men who'd never once spoken my name with respect. Their faces dropped, one by one, like gravity had suddenly remembered them. That was the moment. The quiet collapse I'd been waiting 3 years to see. When my mother died, they called me the outsider. I was the one who had moved away, gone to college, didn't come home enough. They'd always treated my mother like a visitor in her own family, and me like her shadow. After her funeral, they smiled at me through their grief and clenched teeth, promising to take care of everything. I was too numb to argue. I signed what they put in front of me. I trusted them. I believed that family, in the face of loss, becomes honest. How foolish. The estate was my mother's entire life, her house, her collection of art, the land she'd inherited from her own father. They told me there was nothing left for me, only debts, and I believed them. I walked away with a box of photographs and a shattered heart, leaving them to pick over the bones of her memory. I believed their lies until I found the letter. It was 6 months later. I was finally going through the last boxes from her old study when I found an envelope, unopened, buried beneath a pile of unpaid bills. It was my mother's elegant handwriting, my name on the front. Inside was a copy of her final will, signed, notarized, leaving everything to me. I remember sitting there, the room dim, the air thick with dust and betrayal. I read it again, slower this time. Every word sharpened into a weapon. They hadn't just stolen money, they had stolen her final word. And that was unforgivable. Grief had made me quiet and compliant. But betrayal made me calculated. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Rage demands release, and I gave mine a plan. I spent months following their paper trail. Property transfers under suspicious circumstances, signatures that didn't match my mother's, bank accounts that suddenly swelled in the weeks after her death. They weren't just greedy, they were clumsy. I found the attorney who had handled the original estate. He was retired now, living comfortably on what I was certain was hush money. I let him think I was clueless, just a grieving daughter trying to find closure. I invited him for coffee, listened more than I spoke, and asked innocent questions. By the end of that meeting, I had everything I needed: copies of falsified documents, transaction timestamps, and a confession he didn't even know I'd recorded. Still, I waited, because revenge isn't about speed. It's about symmetry. It's about letting the consequences ripen. I refiled the will quietly through a new attorney, one who understood discretion and strategy. Every move was calculated, hidden behind dense legal language and quiet emails. Meanwhile, I kept visiting them. Birthdays, holidays, family dinners. I smiled through clenched teeth, watching them spend what they truly believed was theirs. The new car my cousin bought, the expensive renovations on my aunt's house, the charity gala they hosted in my mother's name. Every handshake felt like holding a snake. Every hug was a lie. They were so confident, so secure in their deception that they never saw me coming. They saw the quiet, grieving girl, not the woman meticulously plotting their downfall. When the court finally approved the reopening of the estate, I didn't tell them. I let the summons arrive at their doorsteps like ghosts of the truth. Their calls came fast and frantic, panicked voicemails, angry texts. I ignored every single one. Let them marinate in their fear. When they finally agreed to a family meeting with my attorney, I wore my mother's favorite locket and a calm, patient smile. The air in that conference room was thick with expensive perfume and thick denial. My aunt sat closest to the attorney, her fake pearls catching the light like tiny, polished lies. She launched right in. "We've already divided everything," she said. The same practiced, brittle line from years ago. "You weren't included for a reason." She said it like a queen announcing an exile. The attorney paused, adjusted his tie, and looked directly at me. "But her name," he said slowly, drawing out the moment, "is the only one in the will." My aunt's smile cracked first. My cousins blinked, their confusion spreading like ink in water. The attorney slid the papers across the polished table. The original will, authenticated, sealed, undeniable. Mrs. Hale, he said, his tone now firm and official. You'll need to account for all the assets you've illegally transferred. Fraud on an estate, as you may know, is a criminal offense. No one moved. Her hands started to shake. This is a mistake, she stammered. I leaned forward, my voice calm and measured. No, I said, it's justice. 3 years late, but still right on time. In the weeks that followed, they tried everything. Threats, pleas, desperate emotional appeals about family and forgiveness. But the law doesn't forgive forged signatures. And the court doesn't sympathize with thieves. They lost everything, the houses, the cars, the bank accounts, and most importantly, their reputation. I didn't gloat, I didn't need to. Watching them unravel was enough. I restored the house to how my mother had left it, kept her art on the walls, and let the quiet, peaceful silence return. One evening, as I stood before her portrait, I whispered, "They said I wasn't included, but you always knew I'd come back for you." The air felt lighter, the shadows softer. Some say revenge consumes you, maybe, but in my case it fed me, it gave me back my strength. And as I left the room, the words I had waited years to say finally found their breath. Everything has been divided now, just as it should be. Thanks for listening to my story. If you've ever had to fight for what's right, you know it's not an easy road. Hit that subscribe button and follow along for more stories of justice.